Emma Carter had always believed in kindness, though life hadn't exactly been kind to her. At 26, she worked long shifts as a waitress at Main Street Grill, a cozy diner tucked between an old bookstore and a laundromat in the small town of Willow Creek. She'd grown up here, and though the town hadn't changed much over the years, her life had. Gone were the carefree days of childhood spent playing by the creek. Now she juggled bills, worries, and the relentless ache of making ends meet on a server's wage. Emma lived in a modest studio apartment a few blocks from the diner. The peeling wallpaper and occasional drafty nights didn't bother her as much as the perpetual uncertainty. Rent was due in 5 days and she was still $50 short. The tips had been inconsistent, and even though she tried her best to stay optimistic, the strain was wearing her down. She worked double shifts when she could, but between utilities, groceries, and trying to save for her dream of attending nursing school, there was rarely a penny left over. It was a chilly Wednesday evening when she walked into the diner, a woman in her mid-30s with 2 small children. The woman looked tired but wore a warm smile, and the children's excitement at the smell of burgers and fries lit up the otherwise quiet night. Emma greeted them with her usual cheer, leading them to a booth near the window. She watched as the woman shared a quiet word with the kids, her eyes glancing at the menu, and then at her children, who were eagerly pointing out their favorites. Emma could tell they didn't dine out often. She'd seen it before, families treating themselves to a rare night out, carefully calculating each order. She approached their table with her notepad, her own worries momentarily set aside. "Hi there, I'm Emma. What can I get for you tonight?" she asked, her tone warm and inviting. The woman smiled, her voice polite but a little hesitant. "We'll start with 2 kids' meals, and for me, I'll just have coffee." Emma felt a twinge in her chest. She knew how hard it could be to stretch $1. And something about this woman reminded her of her own childhood. Her mom had worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after her dad left. They didn't eat out, and when they did, it was a special occasion, always tinged with a quiet awareness of the cost. She smiled, jotting down the order. "Coming right up." The children's laughter filled the corner of the diner as they played with crayons and napkins, turning them into makeshift toys. Emma found herself smiling as she brought over their food, even slipping in an extra side of ketchup. She didn't linger, but she couldn't help noticing how happy the children seemed, how the woman shared small, meaningful glances with them, despite her tired expressions. As Emma cleared the plates and dropped off the check, the woman's face flushed. She whispered something to her oldest child, who fumbled with a small wallet. Emma didn't mean to overhear, but the words were unmistakable. The cards declined. Her heart sank. The woman looked up at Emma, apologetic but embarrassed. "I'm so sorry. I thought I had enough on this card. Let me." Emma held up a hand gently. "It's okay. I'll take care of it." The woman's eyes widened. No, I can't let you do that. We'll figure something out." "Maybe I can." "Really, it's fine," Emma insisted, her voice soft but firm. "Let me cover it. It's on me." The woman looked at her, her expression a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you. I'll pay you back. I promise." Emma shook her head. "Just pay it forward when you can." The family left with tearful thanks, and Emma returned to the counter, her own emotions a swirl of joy and worry. The $40 tab was a significant hit to her already strained budget. She glanced at the tip jar, knowing it wouldn't make up for the expense, but she didn't regret it. Something about that family's happiness had been worth every penny. Later that night, as Emma walked home under the glow of streetlights, she felt a familiar pang of doubt. Had she done the right thing? She was already behind on rent. Would she regret being generous when she couldn't even afford to be? Her mind wandered back to the woman's grateful eyes, the children's laughter, and the quiet promise to pay it forward. Despite her worries, Emma smiled. She might not have much, but she had enough to help someone else. The days following Emma's act of kindness passed in their usual rhythm of long shifts and careful budgeting. The diner had its ebbs and flows of customers, and Emma did her best to keep up, though the looming weight of her unpaid bills pressed heavily on her shoulders. Rent was due tomorrow, and she was still coming up short. As she wiped down tables and filled coffee cups, her mind drifted back to the woman and her 2 children. Emma wondered if they were okay, if they'd managed to sort out whatever trouble had led to the card being declined. She hadn't expected anything in return, but she couldn't shake the hope that her small gesture had made a difference. By Saturday evening, the diner was bustling. The clinking of plates and cheerful chatter filled the air as Emma worked tirelessly, delivering orders and refilling drinks with her usual warmth. The rush was winding down when the door chimed, and Emma glanced up to see a tall, sharply dressed woman enter the diner. The woman looked familiar, though Emma couldn't place her right away. She wore a tailored blazer and carried a small leather briefcase. Her presence immediately set her apart from the usual crowd. As her eyes scanned the room, they landed on Emma, and a smile broke across her face. "Hi there," Emma greeted her, slipping into her professional tone. "Table for 1." The woman shook her head, still smiling. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you. Are you Emma?" Emma's heart skipped. She nodded, unsure what to expect. "That's me. How can I help you?" The woman gestured to an empty booth by the window. "Do you have a moment to sit down? I promise I won't take much of your time." Emma hesitated, glancing around the diner. The dinner rush had slowed, and her coworker gave her a reassuring nod from the counter, signaling that she could take a short break. With a polite smile, Emma led the woman to the booth and took a seat across from her. "What's this about?" Emma asked, folding her hands in her lap. The woman's smile softened, and Emma suddenly recognized her. It was the same woman she had helped earlier that week, though now she looked polished and confident, a stark contrast to the tired mother Emma had seen. "I don't know if you remember me," the woman began, her voice warm, "but a few nights ago my kids and I were here. My card didn't work, and you covered our meal." Emma blinked, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "Oh, of course, you had the 2 little ones. How are they?" "They're great," the woman said, her smile widening. "They couldn't stop talking about you for days. My youngest even made a little drawing to thank you." Emma chuckled softly. "That's sweet of them. I'm just glad everything worked out for you." The woman's expression grew serious but kind. "What you did for us meant more than I can say. I was humiliated when my card didn't work. It turned out there was an issue with my bank. Nothing I could have predicted, but your kindness turned what could have been a terrible memory into something I'll always cherish. You didn't have to help us, but you did." Emma shifted uncomfortably, her humility making it hard to accept such praise. "It was no big deal. I just wanted to make sure you and your kids were okay." The woman reached into her briefcase and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table toward Emma. "That's why I'm here. I wanted to thank you properly." Emma hesitated, her hands hovering over the envelope. "You didn't have to do this. Really, I was happy to help." "Please," the woman insisted gently. "This isn't just for the meal. It's for what you showed me: kindness, compassion, and humanity. It's something the world needs more of, and I want to make sure you know how much it mattered." Emma opened the envelope cautiously, her breath catching when she saw the check inside. The amount was far beyond anything she had expected, enough to cover her rent, her overdue bills, and even put some toward her savings. I don't know what to say," Emma whispered, tears welling in her eyes. The woman's smile remained steady. "You don't have to say anything. Just promise me one thing." Emma met her gaze, her voice trembling. "What's that?" "Promise me you'll keep being who you are. Keep spreading kindness." Emma nodded, unable to speak. She clutched the envelope tightly, overwhelmed by the sheer generosity of the gesture. Before the woman left, she extended her hand. "By the way, I'm Sophia Bennett. My brother Andrew runs Bennett Enterprises. He owns this diner chain." Emma's eyes widened in shock. Your brother owns this diner. Sophia nodded, her tone warm. He does, and when I told him about you, he insisted I thank you properly. But this, she gestured toward the envelope, is from me. Andrew might want to meet you himself someday, but for now I wanted you to know how much we appreciate you. Emma watched as Sophia left the diner, her polished demeanor blending seamlessly with the night's quiet atmosphere. As Emma sat there, still clutching the envelope, a sense of awe and gratitude filled her heart. The diner was quiet as Emma sat at the table, staring at the envelope Sophia Bennett had left behind. The check inside was more than enough to relieve her financial burdens for the foreseeable future, but it was the act of kindness behind it that left her speechless. Emma had never expected anything in return for helping Sophia and her children, yet here she was, holding a lifeline she hadn't dared to dream of. Later that night, as she walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, Emma reflected on everything Sophia had said. The connection to Bennett Enterprises, the diner's parent company, added a layer of surprise to the already unexpected encounter. While Emma was grateful for the financial help, it was Sophia's words encouraging her to keep spreading kindness that truly stayed with her. Over the next few days, Emma carried herself with a newfound lightness. She paid her rent on time for the first time in months, and managed to catch up on her overdue utility bills. For once, the weight of uncertainty didn't press as heavily on her shoulders. Though she appreciated the gift, Emma didn't let it change her approach to her job or her customers. She still greeted every diner with a warm smile, refilled coffee cups without being asked, and went out of her way to make everyone feel welcome. By midweek, life at the diner had returned to its usual rhythm. Emma was working the lunch shift when the door chimed in and walked a man who immediately drew her attention. He was tall and well-dressed, with neatly combed hair and an air of confidence that seemed to fill the room. He looked around briefly before his eyes landed on Emma. "Hi there," she greeted, her professional demeanor kicking in. "Table for one." The man smiled warmly. "Actually, I'm here to meet you." "Are you Emma Carter?" Emma blinked, taken aback. "That's me. How can I help you?" He extended a hand. "I'm Andrew Bennett. My sister Sophia told me about you." Emma's breath hitched slightly. "You're Sophia's brother." Andrew nodded, his smile softening. "I am. I own this diner chain, and when my sister told me what you did for her and her kids, I knew I had to come meet you in person." Emma felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Oh, it was nothing, really. I just wanted to help." Andrew gestured toward an empty booth. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Emma glanced around the diner. It was a slow period, and her coworker gave her an encouraging nod from behind the counter. She hesitated briefly before leading Andrew to a booth and sitting across from him. "What you did for my sister wasn't nothing," Andrew said, leaning forward slightly. "You didn't just pay for their meal. You gave them kindness and dignity in a moment when they felt vulnerable. That's rare, Emma. Most people would have looked the other way or made them feel worse." Emma fidgeted with the hem of her apron, unsure how to respond. I've been in their shoes before. I know what it's like to feel stuck, even when you're trying your best. It felt like the right thing to do." Andrew studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Sophia was right about you. You're not just hardworking, you're compassionate too. That's why I wanted to thank you personally." Emma shook her head quickly. "You don't have to do that. Your sister already did more than enough." Andrew smiled again, a glint of something determined in his eyes. "I disagree. People like you, people who choose kindness when it's not easy, deserve to be recognized. I'd like to offer you something." Emma's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Andrew reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "This is a scholarship fund we started for employees who show exceptional character. I want you to use it to pursue whatever dreams you've put on hold." Emma stared at the envelope, her mind reeling. I don't know what to say. I'm not even sure I can accept this." Andrew leaned back, his tone gentle but firm. Emma, my sister said the same thing when she told me about your reaction to her gift. But this isn't charity, it's an investment in someone who deserves it. Use it to go back to school, start a business, or do something that makes you happy. Whatever it is, you've earned it. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she picked up the envelope. I've always wanted to become a nurse, she admitted quietly. But I've never had the money or the time to make it happen. Andrew's smile widened. Then let this be the first step. The world needs more nurses like you, people who lead with compassion. For a moment, Emma was speechless. The envelope felt heavy in her hands, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented, a chance to change her life. I don't know how to thank you, she finally said, her voice trembling. You already have, Andrew replied. By being the person you are. As he stood to leave, Andrew extended his hand once more. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do, Emma, and if you ever need advice or support, don't hesitate to reach out. Emma shook his hand, her gratitude spilling over in the form of a radiant smile. Thank you. I won't waste this opportunity. Andrew nodded, his confidence in her evident. I know you won't. As Emma watched him walk out of the diner, a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years began to take root. Emma couldn't stop thinking about Andrew's visit. The scholarship he'd given her wasn't just money, it was the validation of her dreams, the tangible proof that someone believed in her potential. For years, she had tucked away her desire to become a nurse, convincing herself it was an unattainable goal. Now it felt as if the universe had nudged her forward, telling her it was time to try. Over the next week, Emma researched local nursing programs and called community colleges to gather information about enrollment. Each step filled her with a mix of excitement and trepidation. It had been years since she'd set foot in a classroom, and the thought of juggling work and studies was daunting. But every time she hesitated, she thought of Sophia and Andrew, how their kindness and encouragement had made this possible, and pushed forward. Emma submitted her application to a local nursing program and waited anxiously for a response. In the meantime, she threw herself into her work at the diner, her interactions with customers taking on a new energy. The thought of her future kept her motivated, and she found herself smiling more, even on the busiest days. A few weeks later, as Emma was finishing her shift, her phone buzzed with an email notification. She dried her hands on her apron and pulled out her phone, her heart racing as she read the subject line, "Congratulations on your acceptance." She gasped, covering her mouth with her hand as tears filled her eyes. Her coworker Maria noticed and rushed over. "Emma, what's wrong?" Maria asked, concern etched on her face. Emma looked up, her voice trembling with emotion. I got in. I got accepted into the nursing program." Maria's face lit up. "That's amazing. I'm so proud of you." Emma hugged Maria tightly, unable to contain her joy. For the first time in years, her dream felt real. The next few weeks were a whirlwind as Emma prepared for her new life as a nursing student. She adjusted her work schedule at the diner to accommodate her classes and spent her evenings poring over textbooks. Though the workload was intense, Emma felt invigorated by her studies. Each day brought her closer to her goal, and the support she received from Maria and her other coworkers kept her spirits high. One quiet evening, while Emma was working a slower shift at the diner, the door chimed, and she glanced up to see Sophia Bennett walking in, this time without her children. Sophia waved as she approached the counter. "Emma," Sophia said warmly. "I had to stop by and see how you're doing. Andrew told me you're starting nursing school." Emma beamed, nodding enthusiastically. "I just started a few weeks ago. It's tough, but I'm loving it so far." Sophia smiled, her pride evident. "I knew you'd make it happen. How's it going? Balancing work and school must be challenging." "It is," Emma admitted, "but it feels worth it. I've never been so excited about the future." Sophia reached into her bag and pulled out a small package. "I brought you something." Just a little token of encouragement. Emma opened the package carefully, revealing a leather-bound notebook with a handwritten note tucked inside. Emma. For the moments when the road feels hard, remember why you started. You have what it takes to make a difference. With admiration. Sophia. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at Sophia. Thank you. This means so much to me. Sophia reached across the counter and squeezed Emma's hand. You're going to be an incredible nurse, Emma. And don't forget, if you ever need anything, you have people who believe in you. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, but the encounter with Sophia left Emma feeling deeply supported. She carried the notebook with her everywhere, using it to jot down notes, reflections, and reminders of the kindness that had brought her to this point. As the months went by, Emma continued to excel in her studies, even as she worked long hours at the diner. Her classmates often turned to her for help, sensing her natural compassion and eagerness to uplift others. One afternoon, Emma was cleaning a booth when the diner door opened, and in walked Andrew Bennett. Dressed casually this time, he greeted Emma with a warm smile. Andrew, Emma said, surprised but delighted. What brings you to Willow Creek? I was in the area for a meeting, Andrew explained, and I thought I'd stop by to see how you're doing. How's nursing school treating you? Emma grinned. It's tough, but I love it. I feel like I'm finally doing something meaningful. Andrew nodded, his expression proud. I never doubted you would. They chatted for a while, and Emma shared stories from her classes and the challenges of balancing work and school. Andrew listened intently, his encouragement as steady and genuine as ever. Before he left, Andrew said, I have no doubt you'll be an incredible nurse, Emma. Your compassion is what the world needs more of. Keep going, you're making a difference already. Emma watched him leave with a heart full of gratitude. She couldn't help but marvel at how much her life had changed in such a short time. The kindness she had shown to Sophia had come back to her in ways she could never have imagined, opening doors she hadn't thought possible. The months turned into years as Emma navigated the demanding path of nursing school. Her life was a careful balance of long hours studying, attending clinicals, and working part-time at the diner. Though there were moments of exhaustion and doubt, she never wavered in her determination. The notebook Sophia had given her became her constant companion, filled with reminders of why she had started and the people who believed in her. Emma graduated with honors, and her pinning ceremony was a moment she would never forget. As she stood on the stage in her crisp white uniform, the nursing pin gleaming on her chest, she scanned the crowd for familiar faces. To her surprise and joy, she spotted not only Maria and her co-workers from the diner but also Sophia and Andrew Bennett, sitting near the back, clapping proudly. After the ceremony, Emma made her way through the crowd, her heart brimming with gratitude. Sophia greeted her first, pulling her into a warm hug. Look at you, Nurse Carter, Sophia said, her voice full of pride. We knew you could do it. Andrew stepped forward, extending his hand with a broad smile. Congratulations, Emma. You've worked so hard for this, and you deserve every bit of it. Emma shook his hand, tears glistening in her eyes. Thank you. For everything. I wouldn't be here without you and Sophia. Andrew shook his head. You give us too much credit. You're the one who did the work, who never gave up. We just gave you a little push. Sophia nodded, her eyes shimmering with emotion. And you turned that push into something incredible. I can't wait to see all the lives you'll touch. Later that evening, as Emma celebrated with her friends and family, she found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed. The woman who had once struggled to make ends meet, who had doubted her ability to dream, now stood on the cusp of a new beginning. Emma's first job as a nurse was at a local hospital, where she quickly became known for her compassion and skill. Her patients often commented on how she seemed to genuinely care, taking the time to listen and comfort them in ways that went beyond her professional duties. To Emma, every act of kindness she performed was a small way of repaying the kindness she had received. One afternoon, as Emma finished her rounds, she noticed a familiar face in the waiting room. It was Sophia, this time with her youngest child, now a few years older. Emma, Sophia called, her face lighting up. Emma hurried over, her smile wide. Sophia. What brings you here? Sophia gestured to her child, who was holding a small bandaged hand. Just a minor accident. They tripped at the playground, but I thought I'd get it checked out to be safe. Emma crouched down to the child's level, her voice soothing. Let me take a look. As Emma carefully examined the hand, she chatted with the child, her gentle demeanor putting them at ease. Once she was sure everything was fine, she turned back to Sophia. All good. Just a scrape. You're a brave one, Emma said, smiling at the child. Sophia reached out, squeezing Emma's arm. You're amazing, you know that? I couldn't be prouder of you. Emma blushed but smiled. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. In the years that followed, Emma continued to pay kindness forward in ways big and small. She volunteered at community health clinics, mentored nursing students, and always went out of her way to make others feel seen and cared for. Sophia and Andrew remained a part of her life, their bond deepening over time. They often reminded Emma of how much she had inspired them, but Emma knew the truth, they had inspired her just as much. One evening, as Emma walked home from the hospital, she thought back to the night she had decided to pay for Sophia's meal. At the time, it had seemed like such a small thing, a gesture she hadn't thought twice about. But now, looking back, she realized it had been a turning point not just for Sophia, but for herself as well. The ripple effect of kindness, Emma thought, was a powerful thing. Her journey wasn't over, but she knew one thing for certain: she would keep spreading that ripple, one act of compassion at a time.